Only wish my students did the same. Again, good evening. My name is Peter Crabb, and I am a professor of finance and economics here at Northwest Nazarene University. Welcome to our Parents and Family Weekend. A lot going on campus, and we're glad you're here with us this nice evening. I am currently serving as the director for the Center for the Study of Market Alternatives, which is putting on tonight's talk. The center was founded in 1976 by Caldwell resident Ralph Smead for the study of political, economic, and religious liberty. The center, now in its third year, located at Northwest Nazarene University, continues to serve as an educational resource for the study of these important liberties. And we're thankful to the support from the Ralph Smead Private Memorial Foundation to keep this center going. Mr. Smead, as many of you know, was a Caldwell businessman and longtime resident, was really a tireless worker for freedom and against statism. Our speaker tonight has some good stories he shared with me this afternoon about Ralph being larger than life. And so I'm looking forward to hearing those for him. Ralph Smead spent decades preaching about thinkers including 18th century Scottish economist Adam Smith and 19th century French economist Frédéric Bastiat. The CSMA at NNU continues this work through classes on these writers and student research on the same subject. I encourage you to visit our website, csma.nnu.edu, it's on the screen here, and subscribe to our updates, and you'll be able to see students at work right now studying these issues. The key program to do that is that students will take current books that are coming out on political, economic, and religious issues and write book reviews for them. And so you'll find those book reviews on our website, and you'll see the work that students are doing applying these classic principles to the economic, political, and religious issues of our day. So, enough about the center and me. It's a joy for me to introduce our speaker tonight, who will help us understand why liberty and the practice of free enterprise are the sustainable solutions to poverty around the world. Dr. Barry Asmus is senior economist with the National Center for Policy Analysis. Over the last 25 years, Dr. Asmus has spoken to thousands of companies and associations throughout the United States, as well as testifying before Congress regarding our income tax system. Dr. Asmus has done research and lectured around the world, including trips to Romania, Albania, China, and Peru. On these trips, he has encouraged government leaders to pass free market, low tax, protect property rights, and other free trade policies. Dr. Asmus is the author of 9 books. His book, Crossroads, The Great American Experiment, was nominated for the H.L. Mencken Award. As a professor of economics, he was twice voted University Professor of the Year and was honored with the Freedom Foundation Award at Valley Forge for private enterprise education. And as most of you know, this is a bit of a coming home for Barry Asmus, as he taught at Boise State University for 7 years. 13. Got the number right. I was trying to remember. So, it is a pleasure to have with us Dr. Barry Asmus. Thank you.
And this is so exciting tonight for just a whole bunch of reasons. One is there's a gentleman here, his first name is Barry also, and we graduated from high school together in Fort Morgan High School. And he said, I corrected him, I said, no, you graduated, I sat in jail. Because I really did sit in jail. I pulled a prank. The neighboring town, Rush, came and took out our bonfire 2 years in a row. On Wednesday night, they lit our bonfire. So you're ready for homecoming? 2 years in a row, gone. We said, not this year. So we said we're going to lay in the perimeter of some olive trees, and we are going to have shotguns and deer rifles. And when they drove in to light that big stack of wood, that homecoming wood, we were going to open fire on their tires. It's 9:30 at night, nothing is happening so far. I say to Roger Patterson, the first string quarterback, I said, Roger, what do you think they would do if we just acted like we were going to come in and like this? He says, well, whose car would we use? I said, my Uncle Harry lives just six blocks away. Knock on the door, Uncle Harry says, fine. When you're done with the car, I said, we'll have it about 10 minutes. When you're done with the car, he said, put the car in the garage and the keys in the milk chute, which was attached to the house. Good, got it, Uncle Harry. So we went, got a gunny sack, put some gasoline on the gunny sack. We came screeching into this big pile of wood, and Roger pops open shotgun. I'm driving my uncle's Oldsmobile with my head down like this, and Roger hits a match to that gunny sack, and all of a sudden these guys open fire on my uncle's car. And in the next 3 seconds, they blow the tires off, they blow all the windows out, and we're just pumping shotguns like this. And so, the only thing I did right that day was to drive home on rims, put my uncle's car in the garage, and put the keys in the door. The next day, 6 in the morning, my dad came down the stairs. He reaches, he grabs me, he says, have you seen your uncle's car? I said, not in the daylight. Well, for that cute little act, I was kicked off the football team, kicked out of organized singers, not allowed to graduate with my graduating class, and had to sit in jail every weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and come home from jail Sunday. So it was not pretty. So when Barry said we graduated together, I said, Barry, you graduated. I was sitting in the jailhouse. This isn't, there's many times when I lay in bed and I think about our life. Mandy and I have been married 55 years, our 55 years of marriage. I think about friends that are in this room, and I think about a senior pastor that had a very instrumental change in my life when we lived in Boise, Jim Harris, and it's great to see Jim here tonight, and just others, not only high school, but college, and Ellen Dalton. Read this book of Don Billings and I, Crossroads, the Great American Experiment. The book has done quite well, and Ellen was in no small part because of Alan's editor of the book and his walkthrough of the book, and so I'm so appreciative of Ellen. So there's so many stories to tell, so I'll open with those stories and tell you my wonderful stories of moving to Boise, Idaho in 1971 and experiencing some of you. I was born and raised on a farm in eastern Colorado. We were sugar beet farmers, and if my dad could raise 20 ton to the acre sugar beets, that was award winning. So a couple of years my dad won the award for raising 20 ton to the acre. Then we moved to Boise and come here, and is Morris Clement's son here by any chance, or is he busy tonight? But anyway, we went out to the Clements farm, a sugar beet farm, and I've never seen sugar beets like that in my life. In Colorado, the sugar beets were about this size, and here in Idaho, they were this size. So when we would harvest the beets, we would just have just a small little farm truck, and they would come through the harvester and up a conveyor belt and then into a little farm truck. Well, now they go 6 rows at a time, harvesting beets that are this big, and you use a big 18-wheeler truck. So it's really, really different to come to such fertile soil. And just in case you all didn't know this, Canada has a bad situation throughout the middle of Canada. During the Ice Age pushed all the fertile soil down to Idaho and into America. That is the truth. And the Canadian Shield really messes up Canada in all kinds of ways. One, it's lots of rock, protruding rock, and so it's hard to have level, fertile soil as you can in Idaho. And so we feel so blessed being from this country, not only having one of the largest contiguous fertile soil patches on the planet, from western Pennsylvania all the way to the Rocky Mountains, through 6 passes in the Rockies to California, Oregon, where California is probably the richest state as far as agriculture and technology, as a matter of fact, too. So what a country, what a country. Indeed, when we say that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it's not a cliche for Americans. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not only not a cliche, it is a reality for most Americans. Certainly, it was a reality for my parents and my grandparents who came from Russia to Ellis Island, and I'll say a word about my grandparents after just a little bit, some words for them. But it is just totally amazing that a nation, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness could produce what? 6% of the world's population, producing 20 to 25% of the world's wealth for the last 100 years. 6% of the world's population, producing 8 of the 10 greatest medical complexes on the planet, including Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic. With less than 6% of the population, this country producing now, with the shale revolution, the #1 producer of oil. We're the Saudi Arabia of oil, we're the Saudi Arabia of gas, and now the Saudi Arabia of coal. Who could have imagined such? Fertile soil, lots of resources, lots of oil. Who could have thought 12 major rivers running through this wonderful country with 15,000 navigable river miles, an ocean on either side, where one ocean opens to the Atlantic to Europe, the other ocean opens to the Pacific, and China in particular, East Asia. And so here we sit with enormous amounts of resources, enormous amounts of energy, enormous amounts of entrepreneurship, and sitting on a thing called freedom that all of us, not only the CSMA, but the folks at Northwest Nazarene College, and many of us are trying to teach on a regular basis. Not only are we fortunate, not only are we God blessed, not only all of that, but we are a nation that has had freedom infused in our veins, and it's come at an unbelievable price. 1 million, over 1 million of our sons, soldiers, have lost their lives fighting for freedom. Thousands lost it in the Revolutionary War, but my gosh, on the Civil War, 650,000 men were killed in the Civil War. Imagine the sadness of Abraham Lincoln as he thought through this. We are losing 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers every week for 200 weeks. It's like 9/11 times 200, 3,000 to 4,000. So as he makes his way to the Gettysburg battlefield, where 50,000 men went down in 3 days, the sadness, the country was bleeding to death. We're dying, giving our life for freedom. And Abraham Lincoln then wraps up a number of speakers. A speaker that was right before Abraham Lincoln spoke for 1.5 hours. Now it was Lincoln's turn, and in a short speech, he ended the Gettysburg Address this way: "We highly resolve that these dead shall not die in vain. That this nation, under God, shall experience a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." Lincoln was finished. It took him 3 minutes to give the Gettysburg Address. It was only 10 sentences long, 270 words. He's done. The Gettysburg was as quiet, stone quiet, no clapping, no chatter, stone quiet. Finally, a man raises his hand and says, Mr. President, can a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people survive? And Abraham Lincoln answered, I don't know how history is going to speak on America, but I do know that Americans were born to be free. And so that is the truth. As we share with students this afternoon at Northwest Nazarene College, and as CSMA continues the great fight for freedom, the question is not, do we have freedom? Of course we have freedom. And we've had over 1 million people die for freedom. And of course we're born to be free. That's what America is about: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and born to be free. The question then becomes, can we keep it? Can we honestly keep it? So what does freedom mean? Where does it all come from? How does it work? But in particular, from a student's point of view, can this generation also be a generation that we can keep freedom? Yes, they are born to be free. How wonderful is that? It's very wonderful. With 1 million people died to make sure that you were born to be free. But now, can we keep that kind of freedom? That becomes the question. So, as economists love to deal with poverty because they love to deal with growth. And poverty is just the opposite side of growth. Unfortunately, the world that most people inherited was low productivity and low economic growth for thousands and thousands of years. And so there's just nothing. I mean, everybody living on $2 a day, $3 a day, or even less. And this goes on for thousands of years. And then we hit the 18th century, and the curve starts to bend just a little bit up. Nothing big time, but maybe making $8 a day or $10 a day. And then we move to the 19th and to the 20th century, and it sweeps up like this. So we all have the absolute privilege of living in a time where you look at all of history, and poverty is the natural condition. Poverty. Countries do not have to work very hard to create poverty. And even there's 1 billion people on the planet as we speak this very moment that are living in different kinds of poverty, and it's very, very sad. I tell you, I became interested in poverty, as economists all get interested some way or another, interested in poverty. 20 years ago, speaking in Mozambique and coming out, finishing, and kneeling down and kissing a few children. Before you kiss them on the cheek, you wipe the flies from the face and you give them a kiss. Then you kneel down and you wipe the flies from the face, and then you give them a kiss. There's something about kissing children, small children, with flies on their faces, and then going back to Arizona, a nice home, a nice car, clean sheets, running water, never ever once having to worry about is there going to be enough to eat, never starving one time, and thinking about those children in Mozambique. To be driving through the capital of Uganda, and the driver was a doctor, a female doctor, and she said, "Would you like to see the hospital?" I said, absolutely. It was about 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. So we went in to this hospital, and we walked into a room, and here are 3 women laying on concrete floors having babies. No towels, no water, no nursing, no doctors, no help, no nothing. Just simply laying on a concrete floor having babies. She noticed one woman in tremendous stress, a baby that was going to try to be born breech. She ran, put on some rubber gloves, she reached in, she turned that baby and got it out, and then helped her for a while, wiped her down, and we get in the car, and then we go home. And there's something, and on the way home, here's what she said: 6,500 women lose their lives giving birth in Uganda. Uganda is about 35 million people, the same size as Canada. Canada loses about 15 women per year giving birth. 15 compared to Uganda, 6,500. You see that sight and you cannot get it out of your mind. My good friend Rich Shields from Arizona and taught at Arizona State University, his niche in life was to be the CFO of our embassies. So he's been the CFO of at least 10 embassies throughout the United States, including a number in Africa, but I think of Nigeria when he was the CFO of Nigeria and lived in Nigeria for 3 years. And I said to him, you know, when we came in, there was a guy working on a car, and the stoplight was not working, and he's laying under his car working on it. He said he's been there for 2 weeks. He's been not had the courtesy to get the car off the intersection a little bit, but it stays there. So that car became a point of conversation. So a few weeks later, I'd call Rich and say, how's the car? Still there. They have the stoplight working? Nope, the stoplight doesn't work. They're just relaxed about that. So relaxed that just a lot of the men just sit on the fence all day and don't work. And so you wonder why poverty. Well, you have to have productive people to get out of poverty. What we did know right away, it didn't take us very long to figure out that foreign aid is just simply not helpful. Poor people, poor countries need a hand up, not a hand out. Poor countries need a sewing machine, not a sweater. Poor countries need trade, not aid. And foreign aid, look at 15 countries in Africa that have received the most foreign aid are 15 of the 52 countries that are doing some of the worst. So some of the ones that receive the most doing the worst. Back to Nigeria for just a second, it's just incomprehensible why Nigeria wouldn't be doing well. It's got lots of fertile soil. Nigeria is the #1 oil producer of any country in Africa. It's also the biggest population, 170 million people in Nigeria. But Nigeria is just fodder for some growth and productivity, and yet, this is the last that Rich tells me, 61% of the population in Nigeria live on less than $2 a day. That's abject poverty. And it doesn't hardly get worse, and yet that's how the Nigerians. So foreign aid doesn't work. Then you meet with various leaders, and inevitably they'll say, well, I think democracy is going to pull us out and make the difference. But unfortunately, democracy does not make the difference. Our founding fathers knew darn good and well that democracy was not going to get the job done. It was not going to get the job done. It was James Madison who said this: "We designed this government." James Madison wrote a good part of the Constitution of the United States. "We've designed this government to protect freedom from democracy and the individual from the majority." And so our founding fathers knew that democracy is just simply 2 wolves and 1 sheep voting on what we're going to have for dinner. There's no doubt where the founding fathers were coming from. They knew. I mean, for them, the definition of politics, poly means many, ticks, a blood-sucking insect. But democracy is not going to get it done, and yet country after country has some kind of a false hope about democracy. But the fact of the matter is this, that how the rulers are chosen is not nearly as important as what the rules are. It's not so much the chosen rulers, i.e. democracy, but what are the rules? And the rules are, how do you limit government? How do you keep government down? How do you keep government from extracting everything? And John Locke told not only Thomas Jefferson, but others, John Locke said, listen, private ownership is the bulwark of freedom. What? Now wait. We want to be talking about freedom. That's what we're talking about, freedom. Freedom is the mainspring. Freedom is our country's best investment. Private ownership is the bulwark of freedom? Yes, because only private ownership disperses economic power away from government. Only private ownership can do that. And so if you want to form a country with limited government, yes, it's nice to have a constitution. It's nice to have a constitution with delegations and enumerations. Government, these are your delegated powers, no more. Government, these are your enumerated powers, no more. That's fine, that's fine, that's wonderful. It's great to have three houses, judicial, executive, legislative branch, to kind of buffet each other and buffer each other. It's good to have state governments against the federal government somehow to limit government. But here's the main point, is a government big enough to give you anything you want is also big enough to take everything that you have. And that is fact. John Locke said that private ownership is a buffer to that. And so not only is private ownership a buffer, but it truly helps give the right incentives. When you own it, you take care of it. When you own it, you manage it. And so private ownership really is quite wonderful. And countries have tried everything. Countries have tried hunting and gathering and subsistence farming, and they've tried slavery, and they've tried mercantilism, and they've tried feudalism, and they've tried colonialism, and they've tried socialism, and they've tried communism. None of it works. None of it works. They keep trying all this stuff. Socialism, communism, tribalism does not work because when we all own it, nobody owns it. The problem with tribalism, socialism, and communism is that when we're all responsible for something, nobody is responsible. And so, on page 135 of our book, we have a picture of there's a lot of buildings on one side of the road, Pima Boulevard. On the other side is an Indian reservation, just dirt. So one side of the road is worth quad-billions. The other side of the road, nothing, just blank, because it's tribal land, and they won't build anything on tribal land. So countries have tried it all. They have tried it all. I was having a sandwich on an airplane, and this guy next to me, I mean, he's just like somebody had committed a cardinal sin. He said, this is terrible. And he tasted this. I said, I admit it. A little more salt and pepper, a little